Welcome back. In today's episode, we get the push rods back in and inspect the rocker arms before reinstalling them to roll the engine over.
We'll just proceed from here. But the next thing I got to do is get this other side off, which it looks like it's pretty loose. And we're ready to put push rods in this thing. Now, one thing I did forget to mention the other day when I pulled that distributor out and marked it all up, once you take the distributor out, do not rotate the engine, because if you do, it moves all your marks, and the stuff you indicated on the top of the MSD housing and the two little marks down on the block no longer mean anything, because that crankshaft has rotated. Nothing's where it should be. Now, I know which push rods go on which side of this motor, because he did mark it on the bag, right side. But what we don't know is which push rod goes in which hole. Now we can tell the top from the bottom because of the wear marks where they were riding through the guide plates. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead, and since this thing didn't have a lot of runs on it, it should be okay. And that's a loose should. I'm going to have to take each rocker arm off. I was trying not to do that, but this thing's going to be tough the whole way. You know, don't skip steps, so that's not a bad thing. And plus it'll let us roll it over and check it, see if anything's wearing. I don't see anything horrible. And then we can just move on to the next rocker. The poly locks down, for anybody that hasn't seen these before, I'll show you on the next one. The poly locks down, and these are called poly locks, they're not nuts, but the actual poly lock itself is down inside of the rocker nut there. You see, now this one's got a little rust in it. I don't have to clean that one. And this is the kind of stuff you have to watch out for when you're doing this sort of thing. This motor's been setting up, and there's just a little bit of trash in there. Now that could just be dry, whatever. We're going to find out in a second. Anyway, it looks like it's wiping out. And it did. Okay. So we can go ahead and put that one back on. Okay, for anyone that hasn't done roller rockers before, this little piece that it pivots on, this little axle here, is the trunnion. And if you look down in here, you'll see, and I don't know if I can get it lined up in the picture here, but there's a flat side to that trunnion. That needs to go to the top. That's what the poly lock comes down on. So if you put it in upside down, it'll wear out. It'll also throw your lash off because it'll wear pretty quickly. And it puts a lot of metal in the engine when you do that. So you just need to make sure that you have that flat side pointing up. And once you set your push rod, just slide her on back in there. Put your poly lock back on. Move on to the next one. Just one of those little things you have to keep in mind. It's not a big deal. It's just one of the steps. And you know, like most things, as long as you're careful and take your time, you'd be surprised what you can do. It's not anything to it. It's just, you know, exercising a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of patience. And see, this one's got an X on it for some reason. Alright. Feels pretty good. I got to clean another cup out. Hope the ones on the other side look better than this side, because not all of them on this side have been ugly. But it's enough that it's worrying me a little bit. But as long as it keeps wiping out and not causing a problem, I'm not going to worry about it. I think it's more dust than anything. It doesn't seem to be rust. I think it's just dust, and it's stuck to the oil that was in the thing. And once again, you know, make sure to that flat side of your trunnions up. There you go. On to the next one. Well, now we're on to the other side. We'll see what it has to offer. No rust. That's a good thing. No dirt either. But this valve cover was sealed up a little better than the other one was. Now another thing you can watch out for when you're putting these on, sometimes they won't go right in the cup. Sometimes they do. If you reach in there with both hands and do that little two-handed maneuver I just did there, where you kind of push down on the rocker and pull out on the push rod, it'll definitely go in the cup. And with a solid roller, that just makes it easy when it's a solid roller, or solid for that matter, whether it's a roller or not. Now, these push rods have already been cleaned and oiled. I got to put the distributor back in before I can lash them up. There's something I should have mentioned a little sooner. Right here is it. A good notepad and a pen. That's invaluable when you're doing pretty much anything. It's good to have it handy. I know it's rhetorical, but you'd be surprised things you forget, particularly with this build here. I'm not following my usual procedure, starting with a fresh machined engine and going through my process. So I will write stuff down when I'm doing a job like this, just to remind myself not to skip a step, like say draining the oil out of this pan before I turn this motor over so I don't make a mess on the floor.
Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, or subscribe below, and stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks again.